Welcome to the Courage to Lead Summit, where we reveal the secrets to successful leadership and creating monumental growth, joy, and impact you want to live. I'm your host, Kaisa Siipilehto, the founder of Livio Joy Limited and Courage to Lead community, and a certified leadership coach with a 10-year corporate experience in marketing. The past years, I've been helping impact-driven experts, leaders, and entrepreneurs from over 20 nationalities living around Europe and the Americas to transform their careers, businesses, and lives. So the purpose of this summit is to give you the key strategies and tools to engage with your vision and find the essential focus areas to create the growth and impact you want to see in this world. Therefore, I have forward-looking leadership experts, well-experienced consultants and coaches, business and startup advisors, best-selling authors, and team leaders sharing their knowledge and insights with you. So today I have the pleasure to discuss with Chris Thorne. Chris is a personal performance coach, NLP practitioner, and corporate trainer who supports leaders and teams to develop the resilient mindset and skills to adapt to disruptive change in the workplace and turn complexities into opportunities for growth. Chris has worked for 15 years supporting global Fortune 500 business transformation programs, as well as private individuals to embrace change and make successful, sustainable transitions. She has worked with C-suite leaders and middle managers from key operational areas and 8 different industries. Her coaching and training programs help individuals to accelerate and scale their learning and behavior changes that create and sustain adaptable, thriving organizations. So Chris has a bachelor in speech communication, so how to communicate effectively on an interpersonal level, as well as ICF qualified personal performance accredited disc practitioner and ANLP accredited NLP practitioner. She has numerous continuing professional development qualifications in resilience, confidence, and neuroscience, to name a few. She also has done a world famous Dale Carnegie course and Dale Carnegie sales course that got her interested in learning and development in organizations. I wanted to introduce Chris, especially because I've been studying coaching and also been trained by her. So I know that she really practices what she preaches, and she has this lovely energy and passion to help leaders and organizations to find ways to work better. So I'm so happy to have you here with us, Chris. Welcome.
Thanks, guys. It's great to be here. And I'm listening to you rattle all that off and going, wow, this is really impressive.
Yeah, I should have done like these practices and my mouth can go like there's a lot of different qualifications and areas that you've been covered and what you've done over your career and life. But I would like to start by asking, what does success mean to you?
Oh, now that is a brilliant question, isn't it? Because obviously, well, we all have our own definition of it. And I would say, I think to me, when I reflect on that, I think it's about the relationships I've made and sustained over the years. And it's about the people that I've helped. It's about the differences that I've been able to make in working with people. And, I think of some of my long-standing friendships and relationships, both personally and professionally. And, it's just those little things when someone will just tell you that, oh, that changed everything, or they have that little aha moment, or you see them, take off and start to have some success in the direction that they want to go. And to know that you're just a little part of that to me is tremendously exciting. And that to me is what I'd say is success.
Yes, I read over the years how you've had many of those aha moments with your clients. What would you say that has been like something very memorable that you felt that has been the most successful for you so far?
In terms of an aha moment, you mean, or
in general?
In general,
like in your career or life, what do you consider that you've been the most successful?
Well, and it's interesting when you say what's been a great aha moment. I think about some of the aha moments I've had since I started to train and develop as a coach, and just the change in my mindset, I think. And we'll talk a little bit more about those qualities later on. But I think that to me has been the biggest shift, and to see, how I've changed and the impact that it's enabled me to help other people make and change as well. That's probably the biggest aha moment is, and we'll talk about this later, but
Yeah.
it's the idea of, of how much choice and control that we have over things.
Can you elaborate a little more that what impact it has had in your life to have that shift?
Well, I think it's meant everything. It's gotten me to go from a career that I'd done, off and on over the years, and and to have the courage to go in a new direction and retrain after several years. I hadn't done a formal degree or qualification since I left university. And so when I commenced my coaching and training journey, I was like, oh, can I do this? Can I make it a success? And yeah, and of course, once I was in it, just realizing that how much I loved learning and adapting and gathering new knowledge, but also putting it into practice. That's made a massive impact because it's taken me a lot of different directions, given me the confidence to speak up to people that have led to business opportunities, and obviously formed new relationships that would not have happened if I hadn't been open to change, really.
Yes, well, that sounds a massive change. And now being an entrepreneur yourself, you really need to put yourself out there and embrace
Absolutely.
changes. And so I bet you
Definitely,
have a,
definitely, and I've supported several other entrepreneurs to do the same as well. Yeah, it's been very exciting to see their growth as they take off as well.
yes, that's like what you described, like thinking like, oh, what is this studying like, and can you succeed? And now you've been actually training other coaches as well. So sounds like a very massive change
Well,
in your
and
life.
and do you know, that was actually, thinking about it, that was a big aha, because that came about because I had a conversation with a mentor
Mm.
about doing work with the coaching academy that you and I both trained with, and always thought I would love to be a trainer for them, but wasn't sure how that was going to be, how it was going to happen, and just asked the question. And then it led to a sequence of events of doing, different presentations and so on, and then being offered the opportunity to become a trainer, which is like, oh my gosh. So a lot of times we just need to have the courage to step up and take a chance, take a risk, ask for an opportunity.
Yes, and ask the questions from yourself, and then from the people you want to help and work with. And yeah, so that's great. I do remember the training with you, and it was very lovely. So that made me actually think of you and wanting to interview you. So there you go, how
Great.
many opportunities can open up when you put yourself out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, having the knowledge and experience that you have now, what would you say that you would have wanted to know when you started your career? So, what would you tell to your younger self?
I think a big thing I would have said was, most of the stuff that you worry about is never going to happen. Uh, Stop overthinking. I still overthink a little bit today. I'm always being told not to overthink. Um, but to just relax. Take things in your stride. Don't get so worked up about things and worrying, about the what ifs. And obviously it's good to anticipate things and, have a plan for what you're going to do. But so much of the anxiety and the stress, I think, that I put myself through going through that career and feeling like I had to know things and do things, and then I didn't. And also, the other thing would be to just treat people like real people, regardless of what level of the organization or what their level of success has been, because that's been a real eye opener too. Because a lot of the people I've coached have been quite successful, and when you get in the room and you just talk to them and you understand that gosh, they've got the same concerns and worries or fears or hopes that we all have. And they're just people. And so we just blow things up. So I would say, don't blow things up and make them such a big deal. So I think I have definitely learned to be calmer and
Mm.
to step back and less reactive, I would like to hope.
Yes, that's very good point what you said about like worrying too much. And I think there's like studies that we worry 80%, 85% of the things that we worry never happen. So that's
Yeah,
a lot of overthinking and worrying.
that is.
So
Absolutely.
you're definitely not the only one. So
No, I don't think so. I think I've got good company.
yes, I have the same. I'm also trying to relax more and overthink less. Well, I guess mine is that I'm recovering perfectionist, like I said. So I guess that's another thing for me to work on as well. And another great advice to treat everyone as humans, because like we are all people, regardless of like where we are in our career, how successful we've been. And so
Yeah.
having the courage, like this summit is courage to lead. So how you can just like lead your vision and go after your dreams and work with those people you really want to. I think that's the
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
So I would be curious to know, we kind of touched a little bit like mindset shift already, but what has been the key for you? Like, what have you changed your mind about?
I'd say what I've changed my mind about is really recognizing what I can do versus what I can't. And that's been a big shift. And I mean, sometimes I can tend to, if I'm not careful, I can tend to go down the road of feeling like everything is on me, in order to make something, and it isn't all on us. But really making that shift of, choice of, okay, whatever happens, I'm going to decide how to respond, what to do, what I'm going to make of that situation, what opportunities are going to be in there. And that's been a massive shift for me because I think it's really empowered me, because although you sort of feel like, yep, okay, it is all on you, it's also, but yeah, I can do something about things. And that's hugely empowering, I think.
Yes. This is something we've talked about with a few speakers, like the self-talk and what do you
Mm.
think you can and what you can't do. What would you say that helps you to do that shift and really open your eyes to saying like, yes, I can?
It's been a bit of a journey of self-discovery. So I think any change, it starts with that self-awareness piece. What am I doing? What is the effect of what I'm thinking or I'm feeling? I've gone, obviously, being interested in coaching and personal development, I've done a huge amount of learning and reading. I've gone to CPD days. I've gone listen to podcasts. I read books. I mean, I've always got something on the go to expand my knowledge of different ways that we can adapt. And the topic of resilience particularly grabbed me when I went on the CPD day, and I've been kind of hooked ever since with the whole idea of. I mean, some people call it mental toughness, or it's grit, or it's persistence, but it's that whole thing of how we adapt to stuff that happens and what we make of it going forward, and that just totally fascinates me.
Yes, we Finns call it sisu. So the grit and perseverance, we have a name and term for it here in Finland. What would you say, since you're very keen on resilience, that what helps you to build that?
Well, I mean, there's a few. I'll put a few tips out there at the end, but I'd say that the key thing I've noticed really is it's really just developing a knowledge of what is resilience. What are the characteristics of a resilient person? What helps us to be resilient? Why is this so important right now? And the reason it's important right now is because I mean, as I'm sure you'd agree, Kaisa, I mean, the rate of change right now is so fast and increasingly complex that, we have to adapt. I actually heard a great quote by an HR director recently from HPC overnight, I think, who was saying that, the rate of change is so fast and increasingly complex that if we don't build our people's internal resilience and an agile and learning mindset, then the organization, we're going to impede the ability to change. And so resilience is key in order to adapt to change. Having a background in business transformation and change, they sort of go together in my mind. So, but it's really recognizing what is it, what helps us to develop it, and then unpicking what those are. So it's things like having a clear goal, a clear vision, knowing what your values are, what's important, because those are what keep us aligned and on track when other things aren't. Putting good habits or success patterns in place that keep us moving forward, building strong relationships, and developing the skills in in whatever capability that we need, communication or leadership or emotional intelligence or critical thinking or creative problem solving. I mean, there's so many. But it's I think starting with what is resilience, what helps me to be resilient, and then unpicking each one of those attributes and developing them as we need to.
Yes, so many important things, and that's what I've been building, the kind of safety net, and how I became ready to pivot from the corporate world to a new field and starting my business. There's so many things going on. Like, how can you just you're rolling your eyes, so you know what I'm talking about.
I know, I'm on the journey.
Yes, I
Still
think
on the journey.
always...
I don't think we don't ever stop being on the journey, but hopefully we get a little better at it as we progress.
Yes, and that's the great thing about entrepreneurship, that you can always, like, learn new and think about what you're interested and where you want to help people. And it's a journey for sure, and a great growth journey where we do need a lot of resilience to tackle. Like you said, the world is complex and changing so rapidly. So how can we do that? And I guess there's organizations who kind of like, okay, let's see what's going to happen in the world. And then there's those who are like, okay, we'll just pivot. Let's see our strategy. What can we do? What's our vision? Where we want to go next? So I think now, in the past years, there's been, organizations who want to thrive despite all the challenges in the world.
Well, and I think resilience is a particularly apt topic with your summit, the courage to lead, because isn't resilience about courage? Courage in the face of change or adversity. It's deciding, where we're going to go and what we're going to do. So I think I was reading the other day that, the number one skill that people are looking for in the people they bring into their organizations right now, it's adaptability. It's being able to adapt to change. And obviously resilience is one of the key attributes, I would say the number one attribute that helps us do that.
Yes. Would you describe, like, what would you say that, what is resilience, now that we talk about resilience?
Oh, a good definition of it. So there's so many definitions, isn't there? It's it's the bouncing back from adversity, which I think is a good definition, but I also like the idea of bouncing forward, because we don't always want to go back to the way things were. We want to improve, don't we? We want to drive and go forward. And it's a recognition of, okay, here's the reality of the situation. It's perhaps having some mental tools or techniques in terms of how we're going to think about it. What kind of perspective are we going to gain on it? And how are we going to decide, what do we make this mean? And I like, the idea of perseverance and grit and persistence. It's the keeping on, but it's I love it. Well, probably the best quote is the thing we always see, keep calm and carry on. Because that to me kind of encapsulates resilience in a nutshell, isn't it? It's that we stay calm, we manage our responses to things, and we keep going. We don't look back. We look forward.
Yes. You've worked with a number of people and I bet helped them to build resilience. So I would be curious to know from you, like, what have you noticed, like how you help others to build that resilience, and what do they need kind of to feel more resilient?
Yeah, so I'd say, I mean, the key, I guess the thing I've noticed, when it comes to resilience, and I guess it goes back to change a little bit as I've worked with, organizations and different people. I've noticed there seems to be really two responses. There's that victim mindset, which is, we're at the effect of, we're waiting for things to happen, we're blaming, we're finger pointing, we're reacting, we just let things happen to us. And then we have that victor mindset, which is more, I guess, victorious, proactive, take the bull by the horns, look for the opportunities, but also anticipate what could happen and devise solutions. They're more responsive. And when you help people develop resilience initially, it's a bit of a conversation around who do they want to be, who are they now, their identity. I was having a very good conversation with a change leader the other day around leadership and change and who did she want to be
Mm.
um, in the new role that she was going to take on. What sort of response to change and communication style and so on did she want to put out there. So initially there's that, making them aware. It's always that as is and to be transition, isn't it? We need to know the starting point and we need to know where we're going in order to figure out how we're going to bridge the gap. And then identifying, okay, so what's stopping me? Is it I've got some beliefs that are really, holding me back, or is it that I'm letting that inner critic, take over, or I'm just, I have some patterns of behavior like, perfectionism, no offense, or or overthinking, or I blow things out of proportion. And I need to find some different ways that I can resolve that. Do I need to find a way to stay calmer, a bit of mindfulness or meditation or relaxation? Do I need techniques to do that? The big thing they always seem to need is confidence, without fail. Confidence in their abilities, confidence in themselves, and their ability to not only adapt but to obviously bring their people with them as well. And that confidence, I find, comes about through, really, it's situational. It's getting them to step out the comfort zone and take chances, take risks, try out new ways of behaving or responding in different situations, and then we reflect on that and tweak it and they go forward. And of course the goals, because where are we going? And it may not even be like a goal, but it might be just like an outcome or an intention that we set, but you need a
Mm.
direction. And then an area that I've recently gotten quite interested in is habits.
Mm.
Just the power of small day by day changes, because they they help us just do things without having to think about it. If we get it right, we reduce the need to make a decision, or you know that, what we call that cognitive load, and you just create a system for success that doesn't rely on staying motivated all the time. It just, you just put things in place. Every day I do this, and over time, it adds up to a success. So that must probably a long-winded answer to your question, but it's a number of areas, really. It's a number of things.
Yes, I love it, and how they are like connected. And I noticed so many things that what I've built, and to me, like you mentioned about the goal. So I feel that once I've had like a clearer vision for myself, like what's my purpose and the purpose of my business, it's easier for me to overcome any challenges or obstacles in a way, because I know that where I want to go. And then, like you said, taking those little actions, how can you just like tackle those in a day-to-day work, like, okay, it's just a little more like what they say, like just get 2-3% out of your comfort zone, and then you start, like building the comfort zone, like expanding, like stretching it, so becoming
Exactly.
more resilient.
Well, and obviously that's where coaching can be so useful, isn't it? Is because you've got the support of that outside sounding board. And I mean, many clients, a feedback I get a lot is it's good to have that, someone to reflect back, what you're hearing them say and how you're hearing it come across, or what's the impact of that, and just getting that outside view and perspective and getting them to look at themselves. And kind of asking them those questions that you probably need to ask yourself these questions, but you don't until somebody actually puts you on the spot about it. Then you have to come up with an answer, and it just helps you to do more than you would do on your own.
Yes, I feel like I succeed as a coach when a person says like, oh, that's a good question. So I'm like, okay, now I can broaden someone's perspective to really like their pause and think.
Definitely.
Oh, we could go to a number of directions here, and you've mentioned so many, but what would you say that a leader who wants to really help others, make a greater impact, what should they focus on at the moment?
So, yeah, I was going to say, perhaps, is this a good time to lead into sort of 3 strategies for being more resilient? Okay. So really the first thing, which we've touched on earlier, is it's that decision. It's, who do you want to be in this situation? What is the story you want to tell once this situation is past, in a year's time or a few months or whatnot? And having that mental toughness to sort of say, right, okay, I'm going to make this situation, something good is going to come out of this. And we often worry, do I have made the right decision, the wrong decision? But I think it's having the courage to say, no, regardless of whatever decision I make about how I'm going to handle this, I will make it a success. And I know that sounds crazy, oh, we just decide, but actually there is a real power in just making a decision and setting an intention, and of course having the accountability to follow through. But I'd say that's really the first thing. And then of course the second thing is designing what's the solution. Of course, what am I going to do? What are the opportunities? And there's a really great quote by Napoleon Hill where he says, opportunity often comes disguised in the form of a misfortune or a temporary defeat. And I think we've all seen those. I mean, I love those stories, in films where you've got the hero and they're kind of down and out. It's like, oh, are they going to turn it around? Are they going to, save the girl? Or are they going to save the planet? Or are they going to, whatever it is, they're going to defuse the bomb in time, and it's that, and I think especially in Britain, but we love the underdog, don't we? Mm. So it's finding the opportunity in what is going on, and a great way that you can do that is it's the questions that you ask when you're trying to figure it out. So when you ask a question that starts with something like, well, how can I, or what can I do, or who can I help, or where could we, or any question that gets you thinking along those lines is going to open up your imagination and open up the creativity. Asking questions like, oh my God, what are we going to do? How am I going to cope? Oh, why is this happening? No help there. You just get stuck. It's not going to take you anywhere. And this is so important because when times are uncertain, your people are looking to you to help find the solutions. And so if you can model this decisive, open-minded, creative learning mindset, they're going to follow you. And hopefully what happens is we get a great ripple effect across the organization, because then we get other teams that are doing the same thing, and hopefully it just grows and grows. And the third thing really I'd say is that, it's having that support system. Design your support network, because no one's an island. I love the quote about to go fast, go alone, but to go far, go together, because
I love that
we are
too.
we are better together, aren't we? Because this idea of, the self-made, whatever. Everyone I know who's successful, they've got a support team behind them. They've had mentors, they've had coaches, they've had training, no one just springs from the ground fully formed, especially entrepreneurs. I know we love that success story, but it's not what I've seen. And if you were ever going to get a coach or a mentor, this is the time, right? Because right now, with all this crazy change going on, you need someone that's got your back, who believes in you, who can support you and help you to see the blind spots and develop. And we look at famous entrepreneurs like, Richard Branson. He always has people surrounding him that are, maybe smarter than him, but he knows that, he just needs to have the right people to get the answers that he needs. Or Tony Robbins, I'm sure, most people I think know Tony Robbins. And again, even he at the level he's at, and he didn't start at that level, he's got coaches, he's got mentors. So I think it says a lot, really, that, it's getting the right supports in place to help you be stronger and to be better.
Yes, I
What
think.
have you seen on that, Kaisa?
Oh, good question. I think a lot of things, like you said, and really like having that bigger vision, leading by example, definitely. Like, how can you just first, I mean, you also mentioned self-awareness, so it starts there, how to lead yourself before leading others, and that's such a key. So you have really you're aware of your thinking patterns and behavior, and because it's so easy to just like be a little bit blind, especially having those blind spots. And for example, the perfectionism in me, when I notice that, I can work on it. So knowing that, so then the key is also how you can like model the kind of behavior and mindset for others, like you said. Okay, to show how you want to learn, test, and I many mention also like the failure. How do you approach failures? So
Oh,
it's not like especially coming from Finland, it's not like in US that you embrace failure, and we are really like trying to grow in that area, that how can we embrace failure. And it's because it used to be that if as an entrepreneur you failed, it's like the end of the world. Whereas I think in US it has been the mindset more like, okay, you need at least one failure so you can learn from it and become stronger. So I think really that approach to failure is connected with the growth mindset, and how you can just like learn by doing and testing. Because how do we know if we don't try first?
that's such an interesting perspective. And when you say failure, I mean, I instantly think that it's partially helping people to embrace the learning process. Because, I mean, let's be honest, do you learn more from a failure or from, I mean, and let's define failure. Failure is when it didn't go according to plan.
Yes.
You learn more from the failures, because, I mean, that sadly, that is the way our brains are wired. We are wired to pay attention to negative things because that's what helps us to survive. So actually, in a good way, in a funny way, we do need failure to learn. Um, but I think, especially in an organization right now, the key that with leaders is that you've got to create what we call a psychologically safe environment where it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to put forth crazy ideas. It's okay to not quite get things right. And there's no, fallback or retribution. It's ironic. So many companies, they want creativity, they want innovation, but the process to get that means you've got to test and try things, and there will be failures along the way. And to me, I think even how you define a failure, I guess a failure to me I define as it's when I decide that I'm not going to keep doing or trying that thing anymore. Because how long do you want to keep going and persisting and trying? I mean, there's famous, was it Edison had 1,000 attempts before he discovered how to do the light bulb, and you go, how many of us would go through that
Yeah.
many failures? But and Dyson, even there's some ridiculous number, but how many failures he went through before he designed the vacuum cleaner? It's crazy because most of us don't want to persist like that. But I think it's super important that we make failure okay,
Mm.
and it's not such a big deal. And I think especially with leaders, because they're especially like those line managers that are really caught in between. They got senior leaders from above and they got their people from below, and those are the people I really feel for, that need to have some, a bit of grace, I guess, because they're really trying to get it right. They're
Yeah.
bound to make mistakes. as they're going. But yeah, it's a fascinating topic, and we won't get into it anymore. But I mean, I could talk. Sounds bad. I could talk failure all day long.
I guess in
So,
that, just like how you just maybe see a little bit light. I was like, okay, I got this a little bit better, or like I feel like that when I get like I notice the progress. Like I think it's so often that we neglect like in like really noticing like the smallest successes as well. Like, okay, this went well, because it's so easy. Like you said, our brain is wired to think more negative for us to survive. So we are just like, oh, I didn't do everything on my to-do list. And you're just like, it's so easy to notice what you haven't done. But when you actually just would go to the other direction and see like, oh, this has been going well. I did this, and actually I have achieved this as well. So it's uh, for me and my clients, I think it's so good to notice like, oh, the progress that I've done so far. And that builds like the confidence and courage to go after more.
Oh, and you're so right there, Kaisa. And I mean, that's obviously one great little thing about habits, of course, is that it just gives you a small, measurable. I mean, I let my best friend is my little habit tracker, which sounds silly. How satisfying it is to tick little boxes that you've done the habit you're trying to do today.
Yeah.
But it does. It works. It really works. You need to see that progress. Um, but yeah, and I think it's especially important as well to measure and look at, what is actually going right, because especially when we have things like big changes or big, scary situations that we're trying to figure things out, there can be a tendency to dive in and think we've got to just throw the baby out with the bathwater and just change the whole thing. But maybe actually there's things that are going well. And when you can build on those bright spots and you help people to find out, well, what is working, you're going to have people far more hopeful and excited about doing whatever that change is, and being a bit more resilient about it as well, because it doesn't seem quite so unreachable.
Yes. Oh, I think we could go on this conversation forever. It's such a fascinating topics. To kind of start finishing up, I would like to hear from you that is there something that we didn't cover yet in this interview that you want to share with our viewers, and especially like give those leaders and entrepreneurs an extra tip, tool, energy, whatever they would need?
I guess just the last point I'd make, really, Kaiser, is that it's so easy for us to just think we got to keep going and soldier on and just try and make the best of things. I've been reading a lot of articles recently about the shift in attitudes towards what people are and are not willing to put up with in the workforce, for example. And it ties into our well-being, our mental health, all these things. And I know, especially for busy leaders, it's really important. It's very easy to just think, oh, I'll just kind of brush that aside. I know I just got to get on with it, and I've got a million things to do, and they're feeling the strain, not sleeping well, but not very energetic, maybe not performing well, and feeling like, well, I can't take time for me to look after my my well-being, my resilience. But it's false economy, because if you don't, you're no good to anybody. It's not selfish. They say the heart is the most resilient organ. It just keeps beating. But obviously we've got to look after it, don't we? Because it can break otherwise. And there are things we can definitely do to strengthen our mental well-being, our resilience, our confidence. And obviously I'd really encourage leaders to really think about that, and organizations to give your people the support they need to develop those skills, because it just has such a massive ripple effect.
Yes. What do you do if you don't have the people that feel good and well, so they can
Well, I
share
mean,
their
I think
contribution?
yeah, well, I guess what we see is I think you can look at the numbers, you can look at, absenteeism rates, or I don't know how they measure presenteeism, but engagement surveys, or grievances or conflicts, or obviously people leaving. We've got the Great Resignation and the talent war going on right now, so it's pretty easy to track the impact back to the bottom line. And there's been I can't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but there's been some great studies done around the impact of having an engaged and high performing and, basically resilient, inclusive, learning, agile organization where it's psychologically safe. People are excited to be there, and those companies, they outpace their competitors in terms of the bottom line growth. Those figures of returns and success and everything else. So I don't know. To me, it's like, well, why wouldn't you? To be honest.
Yes, yes, especially nowadays that the people are voting with their feet and really
Definitely.
saying when something has, okay, this is the limit, and they want something else. So how can we help those leaders to then support not only the leaders but them to support their team members as well to thrive? So this is I think we'll have a lot of changes coming, if there has been already, and more to come, and for the organizations to attract the right talents and especially care for them so they stay in the organization.
Yes,
So,
and I mean, I really feel it does start with the leaders, to be fair, because repeatedly we see people leave organizations because they don't have a good relationship with their manager, and maybe the reason they don't have a good relationship with the manager is that manager is under stress and strain, and they're not dealing as well with people as they could be. So that they're like the linchpin to me in terms of cultural change. You can obviously change needs to be driven and supported from the top, but when it goes into the organization, it's the people on the ground I've seen that really determine whether it's going to succeed or fail. And so it's so important that we support those people, to develop the mindset and the skills they need to adapt to this change, and then obviously use that to support their teams as well.
yes. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge, your experience here with our listeners. And I would recommend our listeners to go back to this interview and listen it again, because I bet you'll learn more when you go listen it again. So Chris, you also have some giveaways to our listeners. Where would you like to direct them? Where
Yes. Well, yes. I mean, my first giveaway really, but to be honest, this is something I do on an ongoing basis. Is if anything that I've said today has resonated with you, and you think, well, maybe this is the type of support that my people need or I need, I'm please let's jump on a call and have a conversation. And when I say jump on a call, you might go, well, what's going to happen? Well, what happens when I have a conversation is I listen, I ask questions, I understand your situation. And if I think I can help, I will ask you whether you want to know how. And if so, then we'll talk through those options. But that's really the conversation is the first step. And I'd also direct you to my LinkedIn page where I do content around this topic around resilience and change and well-being and all good things, engagement and happy employees. And my website where I've got a free download, which talks about how to engage employees and inspire innovation, which links back to the topic we've been talking about today around change and resilience. So that's the best place to find me.
Yes, we'll drop every link for our listeners to go and connect with you and find those downloadables and your calendar. So thank you so much for giving your time and knowledge here, and connecting with you later on. And hopefully we'll have another interesting conversation around these topics. So really like on point in today's world to be more adaptable and resilient to survive and also succeed. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. And I still want to remind our listeners to go to listen to the other interviews that are coming. There's more strategies and tools coming your way. So I'll see you next time.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me, Kaisa, and inviting me to be part of this summit. I think this is a fantastic initiative that you've got out here, and I would also encourage the listeners to go and check out the other speakers and interviews that Kaisa has arranged, because having worked with Kaisa a little bit, I know that anything she puts together is going to be first class. So check it out.
Well, thank you for these words, and see you next time.
Okay.